All right. Welcome everybody to email marketing. My name is Kelly Nelson. I work for the Bridges Library System, but I also coordinate all professional development offerings for the southeastern Wisconsin region. With me today is Deb Merritt from the Milwaukee County Federated Library System. She will be presenting today. And if you had signed up for this session a little earlier, we did ask for potential examples of newsletters. Deb, I think you're going to hit on some of them, but not necessarily all of the ones that got sent, but you'll probably see similarities
Actually,
among
I
maybe.
think I'm
Did you?
gonna do all of them because
Okay,
there's like
good.
nine. Yeah, there's not a
Oh,
ton.
perfect.
So
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so what we'll do is if you have questions during the session, go ahead and put that in the Q&A box or the chat. I'll be monitoring those. Deb will kind of pop in every once in a while, see where we're at, and answer those questions. And then the other thing I wanted to mention before she gets started is that there was in 2024 a marketing plan guided learning sessions that were done. And I'm going to put the link to that in the chat. If you are interested, you can take a look at those previously recorded sessions. There's a lot of good information in there. So otherwise, Deb, I will let you take it away.
All right. All right. So thanks everybody for coming. And like Kelly said, thank you to the ones who sent in your newsletters so that we could take a look at those. And I've got comments for everybody. So hopefully that will be a really helpful um, part of the presentation. So I wanted to get started today just to talk a little bit about email practices, expectations, both on your side and on the patron side, and kind of what's going on in the world of library email marketing right now, because libraries came to it kind of late. Um, I think that there were some perceptions about invading people's privacy, a perception of bothering patrons who didn't want to be um, communicated with that way. But that has been changing. And so as you can see, we had in 2017 about 70% of libraries were using emails to directly communicate with their patrons, and now we're up over 90%. So if you have not started doing library marketing yet, you can see the trend is definitely it's an acceptable way to communicate with people. To my mind, it's really the preferred way because you know you're contacting your target audience. And it's a very acceptable thing. We see generally very low unsubscribe rates, for example, things like that. So, and I can remember back a while ago, my library did not do email marketing, and it really actually annoyed me because I missed a lot of things that were going on there that I didn't know about because they weren't really communicating it. So they want to hear from you, and email is lovely because they kind of expect, I mean, if you ever bought anything from Coldwater Creek, you're going to get an email from them like twice a day until you dump them again. So it's really an acceptable form of communication kind of across the board now. So what I want to look at though is I was looking at EBSCO puts out an annual report. They just started doing this, I want to say maybe 2 years ago only, specifically looking at stats for library email marketing. And then they're able to compare that with some other kinds of industries. So libraries, kind of, this is a national average 49 over a little over 49.5% open rate, which is really good, higher than most commercial industries could expect. However, the average click-through rate, which means somebody's looking at your email, they click on a link in the email to take them to your website or wherever that link goes, is actually pretty low compared to other industries. And I was looking at the stats for nonprofits and for education, which we are a little bit in that realm. Most reports that I could find on email marketing don't separate out libraries. So I couldn't find any other stats other than the one that EBSCO has. But we are below the national average for nonprofits and for education. 2.24 is I think we can do better. Now, again, this is national average. Your stats may be better already, but it's a good thing to track and kind of see how you are doing with that. So I want to talk today about um, ways that you can work on to get that click rate higher, because that's what you really want to happen. It's great that they open it and hopefully they're reading the better part of it, but you usually want them to do something, and that would be, visit your website, do different things based on that. So again, if you're just starting out or if this is something that is still in discussion with your library, there's two ways you can build your list for your email newsletters. One is opt-in, which I think is where most people start with. Opt-in means that the patron has to sign up to get your newsletter. There is usually a form on your website. You might have it, a link to it on some of your materials that you can hand out, but they have to actually sign up to get it. So if you're doing it that way, you really have to devote a fair amount of energy, because your goal is to have everybody, as many people as possible, that you can communicate so that they know what's going on, all of those things. So I would say it needs to be front and center on your website, that form. I would make a QR code that you can include on bookmarks or receipts or a lot of things that you hand out to people, signs in the library itself, encouraging people to sign up for that, because you want to grow that list as much as possible. Your other option is what we call opt out. And with that approach, people are automatically on the list. Everybody who has a library card is on your email list as long as you have an email for them. And then anybody who gets a new card is automatically added to the list. And if you do that, then what happens is if the patron doesn't want it, then they will just unsubscribe, just like we do with Coldwater Creek and everybody else. So there's most email services, in fact, if not all, automatically include an unsubscribe link at the bottom of your email. So you just need to make sure that's there, make sure it's clear. And again, since patrons want to hear from us and are usually interested in engaging with the library, I think you would see your unsubscribe rates would be very low, even if you just automatically sent it to everybody. In my system, we've got libraries doing it both ways. They are trending more and more towards this approach, towards the opt-out approach. I know at least one library had to get permission from their board to do that, so you might have to do that as well. It was accepted, and that's the way they've been doing it since then. So, the different kinds of newsletters I wanted to just talk about, because not everybody, we don't always think about all these different ways that we could be communicating. The newsletters is the one that everybody defaults to, whether it's monthly or weekly, and it's the rundown of everything that's coming up. Usually they come out the first of the month from what I get, and it's just here's all the stuff that's going to be happening at the library. But you can go beyond that. You could do a single notice message about one special event or program, a book raiser, a fundraiser, book sales, to really draw attention to that one thing. You can do special announcements, which we use these as a system. We do send some emails out, but we don't send it to absolutely everybody unless there's something pretty big going on. Um, and that would be, the library is going to be closed unexpectedly. There's construction. We have to open late. When we had the flooding here in Milwaukee a couple months ago, we had to do a lot of that because some of our libraries were closed for a longer period of time. And then you can, depending on your email service or your list building service, you can separate your list and split it out into more targeted audiences who may be interested in a more specific message. So let's say you have an author coming to talk about a book that really wouldn't be of interest to kids or teens, but it's for adults, or it's for women, or it's, there's a specific gender or sorry, demographic that event could be aimed at. You might want to pull those from your email list, again, if you have that capability to filter it that way, and just send messages to that specific demographic. We use Patron Point with the Milwaukee system, and it's pretty powerful with its list filters. So we can pull people's birthdays. We can do automatic message, like happy birthday from the library. We can pull anybody who hasn't used their card in 2 years maybe, and send a note just to them of, hey, we miss you. Come back to the library. We have these new special things going on, whatever. So that's a really good example of ways to communicate very personally and specifically to someone who may be really interested in that particular message that you're sending out. So that's a really good thing to look at. The newsletters, like I was saying, are mostly what people are doing, and there's a reason for that. A lot of libraries don't have a dedicated marketing person. They have a, hey, you're going to do this now person or people. And so it's in addition to a lot of other tasks that that job might entail. And it's a way of getting everything out all together, and then you're done for the month, which has pluses and minuses, and we're going to look at some of that. And we're going to also, just to be real, that long monthly newsletter is probably not going to go away entirely. So we're going to start there and just take a look at how to make that monthly newsletter potentially better, more interesting, more likely to get people clicking through to the links that you want them to be going to. So we're going to start just with the content, and I'm calling it making the best of it, meaning that if you have to do only one monthly newsletter and it's going to be long, because most of them are, how do you make the best of that slew of information that you have to send out? And before I go on, are there any questions in the chat before we move on?
Nothing in the chat.
Okay.
Oh, actually, hold on. Somebody
Okay.
just typed it out.
Oh, good.
So the question is, do some use this as an alternative to social media or as an addition?
That's a good question. I've never heard of anybody replacing social media with this, but it is, if you had to do one or the other, it's preferable to social media in any sort of marketing, because social media, you don't own your list. You've got your followers, but if they go away, or if that social media platform went away, you would lose the contact with all of those people. So it's not necessarily a replacement, because social media is also a wonderful way to reach people, especially very quickly. But your goal should always be to capture email addresses. Obviously, when someone signs up for a library card, that's an easy way to get that. But it's possible you've got followers on social media who do not yet have a library card. So you could use your social media account to encourage people to sign up for your newsletter, come in and get a library card and get on the newsletter list, things like that. We use social media as a funnel to build our email lists, usually as one of the goals for your social media account. That's a good question. I've never heard of anybody dropping their social media altogether instead. So you have to remember, social media, like I said, may reach people who aren't patrons yet, because we need to bring people in, add to the patron list. So social media is a good way to do that. So, okay. So when you're setting up your newsletter, you want to first start to think about what you want. Do you want website visits resulting from that newsletter? Do you want people to come to a particular event or events? You can encourage them, it's a two-way street to follow your social media account to get instant information on something that might be happening, or things. or to use a resource that the library has, like we have Gale courses, you know, online classes. We have all kinds of, obviously, Canopy and Hoopla and Libby and all those things. So as you're approaching the content to that, you have to think about what you want people to do, what you want their reaction to be from that information, and build the newsletter with that in mind. You're going to include calls to action. So a lot of times what you're wanting them to do is go to your website to sign up for a program or event, or to learn more about a program or event. So whatever it is you want them to do, you have to make it obvious what you want them to do and make it easy. So a lot of times you'll see, you know, here's the event, here's, you know, call this number, here's the day and time. It's a good idea to include a button or a link in as well to get them to take that action. So buttons are more obvious than just the, you know, the underlined text link. So I prefer to use buttons as much as possible. This is where when we look at some of these things, you're gonna see some good examples of this. And sometimes on our end, when we're building the thing and you know, especially when we're doing it over and over month by month, it starts to feel repetitive, like, oh, I put buttons everywhere. But from the user side of it, that can be really nice because you're making it super convenient and easy for them to click on that and get to where you want them to go. You also, because we're approaching this of this is going to be a long email, you want to make the buttons all the same. Give them, you know, give them their own color, give them their own um, shape or size so that you see it throughout the email. It's easy to see and notice so that they're going to get used to looking for that when they want to do something. When you're using images, there's a couple of things that are good to keep in mind. Especially because remember, a lot of people are going to be looking at an email on their phone. And so an image that is small or that has a lot of small stuff in it, we're going to see some examples of that, especially on a phone screen. Probably you're not even going to be able to see what's in that image. So sometimes you have control over that. I understand. Sometimes people send you things, here, use this. But edit that as much as possible or curate it as much as possible to make sure they're going to be clearly easy to read. Um, if you can do anything with your graphics, not so much photographs, but if you're using icons or anything like that, make them cohesive in terms of same size, use the same fonts, use a small palette of colors so that you're going to make your whole email look more cohesive and easy to read. If it's at all possible, most email clients give you the option of putting in what we call alt text for each image. And that you'll see it when you're putting the image in, it'll usually give you some options of how to do that. And you'll see a box called alt text, alternative text. It's going to be a very short description of what is in that picture. And it's for people who either have images turned off on their emails, or for people who are visually impaired, they will rely on the alt text. A website reader will read that alt text to them and tell them what's in the description. So it's a way to make the email more accessible, to comply with some of those things, as well as for people who may not be seeing the emails or seeing the photos, sorry. Be aware that heavy use of images will slow down loading time. That's getting less and less of an issue, but you do need to make sure you optimize your images so that they're as small as you can get them. I know a lot of email clients won't even accept an image that's too big, and you may have gotten that. You're trying to upload something and you'll get a message that says, this is too big, you have to make it smaller. So it will prompt you to do that. And then one thing that I saw in a lot of the examples was that there would be images that were clickable, you know, that you can place a link inside an image so that you click it, it takes you to whatever website there is. Keep in mind when you do that, when you're looking at that on a computer screen, if you hover over it, you know, the arrow turns into a little hand, so it's obvious this is a link you can click. you don't have that prompt on a phone screen because you're tapping on stuff. There's no cursor floating around. So unless there's text somewhere or a caption that says, click on the image to go see, to learn more, you're probably not going to get people clicking on it because they don't even realize that that's the link for them to click on. Okay. Subject lines are really important because studies have shown that people will click on an email sometimes just based on the subject line. One of the things we do is we make sure that it's clear that this email is coming from the library. Depending on how you've got that set up, it might be clear from the sender's information, but we'll often say news from the library, monthly newsletter from the library, things like that. You can play around with that and you can try writing some, fun, encouraging, fun, intriguing, something that will really try to catch people's attention and see if you get better open rates with that. And the other thing that has kind of come into play lately is using emojis in the subject line. And I looked at several studies and some said, yeah, they're great. And some said, no, people don't trust them. They think it's spam. So it was very mixed results. So I would say if you decide to try it, do it as an A/B test if your email client lets you do an A/B test, or maybe do it 1 month, not the next month if you can't do it side by side, and see if it makes a difference. One example that I saw, one recommendation that I saw was if you do it, use only one emoji and then use the same one every time you send an email, use that emoji. So it kind of becomes a branding thing that people will see that, you've got the emojis of the open book or, different things that could go with the library. You could put that in and it would help people recognize that's your email. So I have not done much with emojis and subject lines yet, so I might play around with that coming up. So that's content. So then let's start to talk about design tips, and then we're going to take a look and we'll see some good examples of this. So I'm going to start with the message, edit it down as much as you can. And we're going to see some examples of long emails. The thing about a long email is that the recommendation, generally speaking, for how long an email should be when you send it out is between 200 and 400 words, which is not a lot. Obviously, most libraries are blowing that out of the water. So the thing to remember and the thing that needs to be acknowledged and accepted is that when you send a really long email out, no one's going to read the whole thing, period. They're just not. The best you can hope for is that they will scroll through and kind of skim it and see where things are that they might be interested in. That's the hope. Whether they do that or not, is gonna, sometimes your click rates can tell you that, because a lot of times you'll see click rates higher from stuff that's at the top, and as you go down, nobody's clicking on stuff at the bottom. So that's telling you they're not even making it down there, right? So again, we're gonna make the best of it. So edit it as much as you can. Beyond that, you're going to want to present everything very, very neatly and very organized, simplified as much as possible in terms of the overall visual look of the thing. Make it easy on the eye. Put your most important stuff at the top because that's the stuff pretty much everyone actually will see, knowing that as you go down, less and less eyes will be on that information. Okay. You're going to use design elements such as a small cohesive color palette to make it easier to find what they're looking for and to pull things together. Grouping things together that are similar, I am a big proponent of that. Some of the emails, in fact, a lot of them, what I see is when they're listing events, they're going chronologically, first of the month to last of the month. I would recommend splitting it apart more than that. Put all the kids stuff together, teen stuff together, adult stuff together. You can still do it chronologically within those sections, but split it out. So if I'm looking for stuff to do with the kids this week or this month, knowing I'm not going to go all the way down, give me those 5 things right together, and you're going to be more likely that someone's going to see it all. You can split those sections apart by giving them colored backgrounds and change the color of the background when you go into a new section. Use nice big type so that it's going to be readable on a phone. Not everybody knows this point. Non-serifed fonts are easier to read on a screen than a serifed font. So this this PowerPoint presentation is a non-serifed font. Serifs are like Times New Roman, where you got the little tails off of everything. This is the opposite as printing. So printing, you're used to seeing serifed fonts because on paper, those are easier to read. It's the opposite on a screen. All right. And we already talked about images, but it's the, balancing images with content and taking into account that someone who is visually impaired or has images turned off may not see them. And then I was just talking, oh, this is a slightly different color coding. The sides background, I'm calling the sides, the full background of the email also has a color that you can usually change. We'll take a look at that. And you can help people focus by changing that. If your email client allows you to use variable data, that can be a great way to help personalize your content. So that's where you could, if it lets you go in and put in a little formula that will make the email say, "Hi Deb, here is your email for this month." Or there's usually a lot of different ways you can do that. It's a nice way to personalize things. Many email clients will also let you do that in the subject line, to include somebody's name. And using their name has been shown to be a really good way to get people to respond to it. And then the last thing is if you have a super long email, and I'll show you an example of this, if your email client has the capability to use internal anchors, sometimes they're called jump links. At the top, it basically lets you put a table of contents at the top with links. And if you click on that particular thing, it'll automatically drop them down to that section in the email. That is a wonderful thing for long emails because it helps people find what they're actually looking for and will be interested in. Not everybody can do that. Like I say, we use Patron Point and it can't. But I think MailChimp can, and there are others. We'll take a look at some of that. So that's a great tool. So we're going to take a look at some of the newsletters, and while I get this part set up, if there are any other questions that have come in, we can talk about those. I'm going to stop this share for a minute and reshare.
I don't have any questions right now, so.
Right. Very good. Okay, so I'm going to reshare my screen. And in fact, before I share my screen, it will be lovely if I could have it all set up with the first one. I'm trying to be very... Yes, here we go. Okay. So this first one, let me reshare this and make sure it's working. Does everybody see the two emails side by side?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So this is the first one that we got, Superior Public Library. And since it was the first one we got, I used that one I redid it. The one on the right is the one that I created. The one on the left is their email. So here's an example. We've got a long email. We're going down, we're going down, we're still going down, we're still going down. This is typical. This is not unusual to have a long email like this. But so you can see some of the things that I've changed on this side. So for example, this image about the parking lot construction with the yellow and the black, parking lot construction begins September 9. Then we have text about it, which is great. But because that image is just an image and the same information is repeated down below, I shortened it. I chopped it up and just put the most important piece of information in there that I was thinking was the most important. Our library or our lot will be closed September 9 to mid-October. Then they can go and read more about it. But it just cut down on how much space, how much real estate that section is taking. And so by doing that, I just shortened how much scrolling that someone needs to do by a little bit. And if you do that all along, it can help considerably over time. You can see also the original email is a white background with white, these sides. This is what I was talking about. Most email clients let you change this overall background color as well as the inside background color. So I've made it a darker gray, and then I started putting in a slightly gray background for the thing. To me, that's easier on the eye. It defines the space. It makes it a little more focused and easier to focus on what we want them to be reading. So that's a nice way to just clean it up a little bit, make it look a little more polished. And then I included all the rest of the stuff in there. And then we get to the first thing. Now, this is an example of this one starts with stuff that's going on and kind of goes chronologically through. But it's kid stuff, adult stuff, kid stuff, adult stuff. You can see. So if it's easier, I pulled them all together into one section just for kids. I gave it a specific colored background. I matched the kind of the header thing for it. And you can see on the original here, it gives the information, but how do I get more information about this? Do I need to register for this? Who can I call? There's no information here about that. So I have added a learn more button. And so that if they want to learn more, you can click on that. Probably would take them to your calendar of events or to if there's a specific page for an event on your website. You'll notice I also added this button at the very top. Click here to visit our calendar of events. I've given them an out. By doing this, I've given them a way to say, oh, I'm interested in this. I don't want to read this whole long email. I'll just go to the calendar, and that, the calendar is going to give them an overall monthly view, and they can go from there. So give them an easy way to engage with your calendar, even if they don't get any further in the email than just right here, okay? So I've made the images a little smaller too, again, condensing the size of how long somebody has to scroll. I changed this Polly the therapy cat who looks awesome, but these are tiny little pictures. These ones on the side, they don't really add anything to it. So I just chopped it down, used the one, put the information in the text, and was able to chop down the size. Add the learn more button to get a little more information. There's also a great email link in here. Obviously, they're going to definitely want that. So you can see what I've done. And so then I move down. Now we've got a new section, adult events. Change the color of the background. So we know we're done with this section. We're now in this section for the adults. Same thing, slightly smaller images. I didn't go crazy because I was, I didn't want to spend my whole life doing this, but you get the idea. And then we get down to the bottom, and I didn't do everything. But now we get to the bottom, and we have these four online resources, which isn't terrible. I don't hate this. But it's just a lot. Again, in the interest of look at all these things. They're all different colors, they're all different things. These are all clickable, by the way, but I don't know that they're clickable because I haven't been told that, right? So I would recommend simplifying some of this if possible. Maybe you can just do a single featured resource each month and change it each month to something else. You could do a button at the bottom that's click here to see all of our online resources and only highlight the one. You've got these great book recommendations. But again, I'm trying to, since this is like little bitsy pieces all over, I tried to combine it into one. And that was where I stopped, but you can see where I'm going with it. Here, finally, at the very bottom, we get a button that says click here to visit our website. But I think that's the first one that we've seen in this whole email. And they may or may not ever make it that far down, right? So that's where you want to give them those buttons all the way through, beginning right at the very top. Make it so easy for somebody who wants to do something, make it so easy for them. These are all great, these little squares, but there's just a ton of information here. On a phone screen, some of this might go very small. It's quite small to my eye, even on a computer screen. So if you're going to do something like this, and it looks like there are quite a few places that do, I would simplify this color palette, make them all the same color palette or only a couple different ones. This is a lot of colors and a lot of very small type coming at me. I'm unlikely to read it all. So simplify it. See if you could edit any of it out. Do you need everything in here? And honestly, sometimes this kind of information might be better just as text. Here's our hours. Here's where you click to rent a room. Here's how to learn about being part of our foundation. And maybe it just doesn't need to be all these images because they're great, but there's so many of them. It's just getting real busy. And this very bottom thing, again, here's your calendar, way too small for me to read it. It's not clickable even, so it's not actually earning its space in this. So I would just dump this all together. Okay. So that's an example of some of the things that I was just talking about in the design section of ways to simplify it, clean it up, clarify it, and just make it easier on the eyes. That's a really big part of it. Okay. So let's move on. That's the only one I kind of redid. Do I see some questions coming in?
Yeah, I do have a couple questions. They aren't necessarily specifically related to this email.
Yeah.
So the first question is, how do you go about collecting emails?
Oh, to build your email list in general, most libraries, our libraries, always ask for an email address when someone signs up for their library card. I would assume most do that. So that's your list to start with. If your library allows you to do an opt-out version, you just pull all those email addresses and there's your list to start with. In addition to that, I think it is, even if you have an opt-out option, it's always a good idea to have a little form that where people can sign up to get your newsletter and you just add them in. Some systems, our system, Patron Point, is actually tied to our ILS, which we use Sierra. So that actually creates list for us because it will pull the information from Sierra into Patron Point and automatically build lists. We give it parameters and filters and it builds lists for us. So yours, I know there are other email clients that can do that, one or two of them. If not, you may have to do it manually and then upload it into your email client, like from an Excel spreadsheet.
Okay, great. And then um, going back to your subject line uh, point.
Mhm.
So if 33% of readers open emails just based on subject lines, what are other readers using to decide whether to open? Now, this might be subjective if I don't know if you have.
Yeah, I don't really know the answer to that. That is a good question. To me, when I'm sending stuff on behalf of the library, and for me it's the library system, to me the most important piece of information to get across is I want to make sure that they know who it's coming from, because to me that's a big part of whether they'll open it or not. If it's clear it's from the library, people are going to be interested in opening it to see what it is. If you're there to if you're sending out information about a specific thing, I would try to communicate that brand new resource available from your library. Don't miss this upcoming event from your library, something like that. If it's just your monthly newsletter, I would, you know, wonderful opportunities coming up at your library. Just month, if you do something really, really generic, October news from the library, that's telling them what it is and who it's from. Um, Again, since we're the library and everybody loves us, they are likely to open it. If you can jazz it up a little bit, you can see if that improves your open rates. Generally, you just want to keep it really short though, because it's not going to all show in their email thing. Yeah. I hope that
Okay.
answers somewhat answers it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you could do a whole webinar on subject lines if you wanted to.
Oh boy.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yes. You could
You
really get
potentially
into the
could.
weeds.
Right.
I would
Right.
say somebody did comment to the previous question
Hmm.
about getting subscribers that at outreach events they offer a drawing for a
Yes.
basket of goodies, and
Yeah.
then to get a chance to win, they complete a ticket requesting their email for a full disclaimer about signing them up. So they request their email at that point, and that's kind of
That's
a
a
nice way
great,
to.
yeah,
Mhm.
really good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then I'll just give I had another couple other lengthy questions, but I'll give you one more question, then let you keep going, and then we'll answer
Yeah.
those other ones later. Somebody wanted to know, would you recommend having our mission statement in every newsletter?
Um, you could put it at the bottom. Um, I wouldn't put it front and center at the top because there's probably more important information you want front and center at the top. If it's a brand new mission statement that you've just created and you're really proud of it and you want to make sure that people understand what the library is trying to accomplish, maybe at that particular time, put it front and center. But mission statements, this is my personal opinion. Mission statements, generally speaking, I think are more important for the internal organization than the people who they are, whether it's customers or patrons, than the people who are their target audience. That's my opinion about mission statements. So yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
sounds good.
Yeah.
I'll let you keep going, and then we'll get to these other questions later.
All right. That sounds good. Can you
Mhm.
see this Word document that's on the left-hand side now?
Yes, yes, I
Good.
can.
'Cause this is my notes that I took for each one, so I'm going to be kind of working off of those because I went through them all earlier. So the lacrosse newsletter, we've got for the most part nicely spaced out, nicely sectioned out. We've got some color-coded backgrounds. I think you could do a little bit more. Super long section about your renovations. Um, and not crazy long, right? This one isn't quite as long. So a couple of things here. We've got this is clickable, but I don't know that it's clickable. I like this nicely thing here, point out they can pull it up as a PDF file. This is very small, hard to read. This type that's on this kind of aqua green sidebar in for my tired eyes is almost unreadable because of the outlining of the text around it or something. I would undo that and make it just straight text. It's very, very hard to read. This is another thing where sometimes things that are made easier to read in print form are not easier to read in screen form. And my guess is this might have been made for a print option, and then you just grabbed it and used it for your newsletter, but it just doesn't work on a screen. Here's a good example of, we've got three pictures with, they're kind of long views of things, kind of hard to see what these pictures of. They're kind of dark. Everything in them is really small. You'd probably be more effective with one image bigger, like this one, much clearer, and you can see what it is. So be aware of that as you're working through. The letting in this email is, the letting is the space in between the lines. It's inconsistent. I am a big fan of reasonably wide letting, especially on digital screens. It's much easier to read text that's spaced apart, and it helps your eye follow it. Not bad though, not too bad. We've got, here's a click for more events. My big beef with this one is this. This is very long. Not that someone might not want to read it all. They're unlikely to read it in the, what I would do is I would do um, one or two short paragraphs about the information, and then a click here to read more about it, taking them to you could do a landing page on your website, which you actually do have because you can click on this and you can see the bigger maps and stuff. It's all there. So I would just not expect people to read it in the newsletter, but that's a little bit of a judgment call too. So There we have La Crosse, ED Lock Public Library. Okay, see the star here? This is a beautiful newsletter, and let's take a look at why. Okay, we have got a really clear header. We've got buttons right here at the top. Go to our website, go to our catalog, which I love, go to the event calendar. So you've given everybody an out immediately if they don't want to go all the way through. But here we've got, this is our newsletter. We've got a couple of kind of highlights of what's going to be going on. Click here to go to the calendar to see it all. News from the library has its own colored background. And we've got buttons down here. Apply for a card. Take the survey. You're asking them. These are very clear calls for action. We've got a change for a little bit of a graphic here. Nice balance of text underneath it. Information about your festival, a button to click on for more information. And then we've got, I kind of like this. We've got just some very simple, very short text descriptions of a few things coming up. All these lines are links that they can click on again, get more information. Another button, go to get more event details. Here's like the highlights, and then click here to do more things. Another thing about your walk run thing, a kids section. So this is, there's a lot of information here. It's just really clear, summarized, bullet points, nicely colored. Now it's starting to get a little bit, we're starting to see these little bitty image things that I'm not as much a fan of. Um, but still, this one, I think of all of the ones that got sent, I think I find the most cohesive and the most easy to find what I'm looking for or to get out of it and still find more information. And you can see they've used a very consistent color palette. They've kind of alternated between this tan background color and this light green background color, and it goes back and forth. So it's a nice way to separate things out, but still keep it cohesive from one section to the next. So I think that's a great example. I think that's like we were saying, I think they've made the best of what they had to work with. They've made the best of it. And I think that's a pretty effective one. All right, we've got Clintonville. I guess I've skipped the Aram one. We'll come back to that one. Clintonville. My first thing here is that when I first look at this email, my eye went right to this adult craft night thing, and then I went up and I went, who is this from? Which library? And it actually took my eye a minute to find this tiny little logo. So I would enlarge that a lot. I would make yourself a nice big header so that people know exactly who it's from and what it is. Now, this is very pretty. It's a very large image with very little text, so you might want to cut down on the size just in terms of loading time and things like that. Um, and then we've got a lack of links. We've got a lot of information. There are phone numbers to call, but there's nowhere for me to link to anything to your news or to your website, to your calendar. This image is linkable, but there's nothing that says click on the image. So that's kind of the biggest thing. It's very clean. I like that you've got colors on the sides here to keep me in the middle here, help my eye focus. Very small text in this image again. So yeah, it's just, I would add a lot more links in here, maybe cut down on some of those image sizes because like this is difficult to read on a screen, right? So again, I think this is somebody made this as a flyer maybe, and you grabbed that image and dropped it in there, but it's not really pulling its weight for how much real estate it's taking up, okay? Um, let's see who's next. Stoughton. Same thing, very tiny logo here. Make that bigger so that it's nice and clear. Now the header does help because it's very clear, Stoughton Public Library News. This is something where this kind of medium color purple with the black text, I can read that just fine. Someone who is visually impaired may not be able to. We want to put things in pretty high contrast. So if you made this text white instead of black, it would make it much easier to read. It would make it easier for me to read, but especially for someone who is either colorblind or somewhat in other ways visually impaired. could be a problem. All right, so you've got a pretty nice balance, lots and lots and lots of text that might be able to be edited down so it's not so long, knowing no one's going to read it all. And not to be, it's just the truth, it just is. Give them a way to read it if they want to read it, give them a way to go to the website to learn more, but also give them a way to get through the email quickly without having to feel like they need to try to read it all. Yeah, this one is very, very, very long. Your images are clear. In this case, the text isn't too short. I would add some more buttons. You do have a lot of links there. Like I was saying, this little text link is less noticeable. I would put some buttons in here to make it just really obvious of click here, click here, click here. Um, it's just, you've got a lot of information you have to work with here. Um, so yeah, just give them more buttons to press to get out of them. And this is another one I would, with the link that you've got going on here, I would find out if your email client library aware. I don't know if they can or not. If it's possible to put jump links at the top to get people down to the section of where they might want to be interested in looking at. Okay. We have Eager Free Public Library. So your text here is really close together. This is actually a great example. It is hard to read. It's hard to read on a print page and even worse on a screen. For me, this text, my eyes, it starts to actually like vibrate a little bit and move around. I find it very difficult to read this. So open up the leading there and it's kind of all the way through. Here's another good example with this dark blue background, almost impossible to read the black text on it. If you made that white, it would be much easier to read. We've got, where are we here? Eager Free, what else have we got? Yeah, more calls to action. Um, I like these three icons on the bottom are great because they're color coded. They're kind of all the same color code. So if you could do that kind of idea and bring that through, like that's a really nice green, maybe use that green as one of your background colors. You do have a lot of different background colors going through here. If you could simplify that, it would clean it up. But since your email is not super long, it's not a terrible crime that you've got multiple colors through here. Okay. Let's see. We have this one came in as, how do we get rid of you? Oh, didn't mean to do that. Okay. This one came in as a PDF file, so that's why it looks a little different. Very nice color coding here. See how all the buttons are the same color. The images use that same color palette of the blue and the orange. Nice clear header at the top. I would bump up the text size. To me, it's a little bit small, which makes it harder to read. So I would make that a little bit bigger just to make it cleaned up. And it's long enough. It's not terribly long, but it's long enough that I think incorporating some colored backgrounds to differentiate sections would be helpful and make it easier for someone to find. But you've got great, click-throughs all the way through for people to get into where they want to go. So I think generally speaking, that's a pretty good one. All right. Oh, we already looked at this one, didn't we? I must have pulled that up twice. All right, who did I miss though? We missed Graham. Oh, this is the one. This one didn't open up. It was a broken link where it says view this email in your browser. I think because this was like a test send rather than the actual thing. So we'll just look at it through here, which is fine. So I love this cute name, the Graham Quacker. That's a great subject line, right? So people would start to recognize that and know, news from your library, the Graham Quacker is awesome. So really nice color palette with the soft gray in the background and the softer. This is one thing I did not know mention before, but leaving something pure white with like this background can actually be hard on the eyes depending on the brightness setting of somebody's device. So this is, you can see, it's not white, but it's a completely neutral light color of gray or something, but it's just not stark white, which is easier on the eyes when somebody's looking at something. So I really like that. Um, I love that they include this no registration required. That's something that I often wonder when I'm looking at programming information. Do I need to register for this or not? It makes me wonder if libraries get a lot of calls asking when if you just included that information, it would cut down on that kind of thing. So nice obvious link buttons, nice clean images that are not too big. I think this one is very nicely done all the way through. So not terribly long, nice clean information at the bottom with the hours. So yeah, I think that one's nicely done. Did I get all of them now? I think that might be all of them. Aram. I don't know where that one went, but I think, in general, I think you get the idea. You're starting to see the repetition of similar things that could be made cleaner. I'm going to stop this share. And I've got to go pull this guy back up. And okay. Me. Oh, come now. Sorry, this is okay. I'm going to share. I'm going to do this first, but then I'm going to open it up. Continue to share. Do you
Mm.
see the full
Now,
presentation now?
yes, now I do.
Wonderful,
Mhm.
wonderful. Okay. So let's just quickly see, does anybody have any more questions based on that? We just have about 5 minutes left, so I want to get to anybody's
Yeah,
questions.
I just had a couple questions here. I'll try to read them quickly. So somebody
Yeah.
says, at my library, we used to separate programs by targeted audience groups in our newsletter. We just dropped that. There were programs that blended kids and YA or YA and adults, all ages, etc. We were
Mhm.
concerned that patrons would take the audience group literally and feel disincluded if they had a teen, the program said kids, and both ages were invited. We figured it would also be too confusing for patrons if we created and deleted different audience groups each month for those programs. It would also create clutter in the email to have so many subjects. Are there any other ways to make it easier for scrollers to find the programs that might be of interest to them in the newsletters?
One way you could do it is this is MPL, which is our biggest library, Milwaukee Public Library. They have 14 branches and they only send one email. So their email is miles long. And so they do jump links at the top. And they separate it not by ages, but by kind of category of the program. So they do like an arts and crafts section or a business information or author visits. So if that's a possibility for you, that might be a way to indicate areas of interest as opposed to age groups.
Yeah, I like that. Okay. Then any advice regarding frequency, monthly versus weekly, assuming endless staff capacity. This was something you and I kind of
We're
chatted
going to
about
talk
when we
about
were,
that
yeah.
next, actually.
Okay,
Yep,
so
yep,
I
for sure.
will save that one. And then we have a question about different recommendations for design layout length for weekly versus monthly. I'm wondering if you might address that later too in the
Yeah, a little
frequency.
bit. Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, and that one is a challenge because that again could be a whole nother webinar on design perhaps. Um, but okay, so then the last question is a suggestion for a simple email client, which I suppose there's probably many.
There are a lot. I've used a lot. They're very similar in terms of the interface. Of all the ones that I used, it's kind of like if you've used one, you can figure out the rest of them. Um, I've used MailChimp for my own personal stuff. Like I said, we use Patron Point here. it's going to depend on if your library wants or is able to pay for something. Some of them are free, some of them are not. Um, I honestly, I know we used Constant Contact for a long time. Constant Contact was one of the first ones, and it's been quite a while since I've used it. It was not my favorite. I preferred MailChimp over Constant Contact if you're looking for just kind of an entry way to get in. MailChimp has quite a bit of capabilities. It has a free option. It does have a paid option too, so you can like get more services if you pay for it, but if it has to be free, you can do that. And so it's usually when there's something like a subscription service that somebody wants you to buy this service, they'll give you a trial period for free. A lot of times it's a month, sometimes it might be 7 days, but I would, if you're shopping for one, I would recommend trying out a few and seeing, because you might have a preference like one of the things that I really like about Patron Point is you can control really specifically the space between the lines of type, the leading. To me, that's a very big deal. Some email clients don't give you that much control over it, and that would be a deal breaker for me, frankly. So sometimes it takes you going in and messing around with a little bit to find out what boxes it checks for you, and go from there. I mean, they all work, but you just might find some that you feel you can control the design a little better in certain ways than others. That, I guess that's the best answer I can come up with for that.
Absolutely. I think that means that makes a lot of sense. And I think if you can do a trial of
Hmm.
something to
You
test it out, that
usually
wouldn't be a good
can,
idea.
yeah.
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
Mhm.
I did have somebody who noted that their system uses MailChimp, um, and they use a paid version, but they get a nonprofit discount. So it's $17 instead of $20 a month. So that's good
Yeah,
to know. Something to check with.
a
Yeah.
lot of places will give you a discount for that for sure. Yeah,
Hmm.
good point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I'll let you keep going. I
Yep.
understand we're at 11 o'clock, excuse me, so you have to leave. That's totally cool. We're recording this so you can catch the end of it when the recording gets sent out later. So go right ahead.
We're good. Okay. So yeah, so here's where I do want to give you a plug for trying to change from the big long monthly newsletter. Because actually Kelly was talking about this, that they used to do monthly and they switched it to weekly. And they have seen increases in their programming attendance. And I know of some libraries who one of our libraries, they do a monthly newsletter, but they also occasionally will send out one that's just about one event, one program, and they see bumps in attendance because of that. So I would highly recommend you at least do that. Pick one or two big, you don't want to miss this kind of events, and really highlight those in an email just by themselves and see if that improves your attendance rates. I would also really highly recommend seeing if you can break up that newsletter into smaller bits, whether it's every other week, maybe a 2-week newsletter instead of a month, or weekly. You have to put all that content in, whether it's all in one big newsletter for the month or whether it's 4 small newsletters for each week. It's the same amount of content going in. It shouldn't take you that much more time to have to do that because you've got all that content. You still have to do it. So see if that might be possible, like you were saying, assuming unlimited time. But really, is the time requirement going to be that much more if you split it up? I would argue that it would not. Now, it would take more time in terms of I have to do this every week instead of I have to do it once a month, but you might have to do it for an hour every week instead of 4 hours once a month. So, see if you can make it work. I think that your patrons would appreciate it. And I think that the patrons would be ingesting more information about the library and what's going on there if you can feed it to them in smaller bits. Okay. So, another thing that I like to I would recommend if you do the smaller newsletter, shorter amount of time, you could always include a save the date section at the bottom for something big that's coming up that you want to make sure people it's on their radar. give them that little taste of something at the bottom. Again, links to click into more information, but you've still cut down on the overall amount of content that you are putting in front of them all at one time. And then the follow-up. So you've done your newsletter, you've sent it out, and you should be taking a look at some of the results of that. So almost every email client is going to give you reports that are really, really easy to read. So, we all look at our open rates. Really pay attention to those click-through rates because open is one thing. And to be honest, some email clients show that something's been opened, whether or not somebody actually like sometimes when you click on something to see what it is, it's open, they may or may not have actually read it much. So the click-through rates, to my mind, are a more important indicator of how effective your emails are being. So you can keep track of that really easily. And again, like I said way early on, the national average was about 2.25, I believe, click-through rates for libraries. So see if you can, if that's our benchmark, our baseline, see if yours are higher and see if you can in, increase that by, including tons of links in those emails. Give them those buttons to click and give them things to easy ways to get into more information. Usually your report will also show bounced emails. And I know that our libraries rely on email communication for things like hold notifications, overdue notifications, things like that. So if you've got an email that's bouncing, it's probably going to be important for you to follow up to find out if you can get a correct one in there. The patron probably is going to want to help you out with that. Usually that involves a phone call, since you can't send them an email, obviously. But for libraries, for industries, for commercial stuff, usually we just dump the bounce ones. But for libraries, it's probably worth following up on to make sure you've got a correct email for someone. And then here's one last thing is that some email clients will also offer a feature so that when you send an email out, you're going to see how many have opened it. Some will offer an option for you to resend the email after a certain amount of time. Usually I would make it 5 days, 5 to 10 days out, because if they haven't opened it by then, they're not going to. Sometimes they'll see it and they'll say, yeah, I'll read that tonight or whatever. But after a few days, it's too far down in their feed and it's gone. So that can really, really help with your open rates. A lot of times it's not that they haven't opened it because they don't want to read it. A lot of times they missed it. They're too, like I said, I'll read it later and then they don't. So I would recommend using that option. I have seen really good results from that. And then you don't have to do a whole new email. You can just resend it. You could change the subject line. A lot of times it'll give you that option. See if a different subject line catches their attention more to open that up. But that's a really nice feature a lot of email clients will give you. So that is the end of all. I know I threw a lot of information at you. So like Kelly said, this is getting recorded. I'm happy to send this PowerPoint to people if they would like to have the whole presentation to read through as well. Just let us know if you would like that, and we can send that out
Yeah,
like as a
actually, if you could
PDF
just
file.
send it, if you can
I'll
send it
send it
to
to you,
me,
Kelly.
yeah,
Sure.
that'd be awesome.
Sure.
Yes, I think this is something you could do a lot. You could talk on each of these points for a very long time. I
Right.
have a couple more questions. So, and I understand we're after 11, so if you have to leave, I
I'm
understand.
fine. Yep.
But when is the best time and day to send an email out if you are doing it monthly?
Yeah.
Patron Point has the AI option. Is that the best route to go? So, assuming the AI option is like it's determining when the best time is? Is
Yeah,
that, do you
a lot
know?
of a lot of clients actually will have that, and I don't know the answer of here's when you should send it, because the AI what it's doing basically is it's tracking previous emails sent and saying these were the ones that got the best open times and rates. They some of them also actually scrape information that's just out in the world to get a bigger sample to say this is the best time and date to do it. And I would try that, see if it'll give you a recommendation, try the recommendation and see how it works. And it's some of that is, so much of marketing is try it and track the results and respond to what you have learned. So yeah, absolutely start with the recommendation and see how it works. And if it's good, go with it. And if you feel like you want to try a different one, go with that too. So it's, there's no definitive answer for that one, but
Mhm.
yeah. Yeah.
And then somebody asks, how far in advance would you send a weekly event email?
That's a really good question.
Mhm.
What do you know what you guys do, Kelly?
So, I mean, when I was, I guess, at my previous library, it would probably depend on if it was an event that needed registration.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and if we anticipated, what did we anticipate the registration to look like? We generally would open registration for events 6 weeks in advance, but the email maybe would go out a month in advance. Now that was for things
So
that
this was
required registration.
this was you were sending a single event email,
Yes, I should
correct? This
mention
is you
that.
were
I'm
just saying
sorry.
this is
This
the
is
event.
not monthly. Yes,
Okay,
because what we were doing at my previous library, we switched from the monthly very long email to a weekly email that had one single event on it and maybe an image at the bottom with those important things like we're going to be closed for the holidays
right,
or whatever.
right.
So it was very short.
So
So
your
for the
weekly email did not have everything that's going on
mm-mm,
this week. It had
mm-mm,
one featured event. Click
mhm.
here for all the other stuff, basically.
Hmm.
Okay,
And you had mentioned the library that used LibraryWare. That was what we were using. And so they do have the option at the top to put links to targeted things. So we had the website, we had the calendar. We might
perfect.
have had something else, but that way, and a lot of when we would at the click-through rate, there might be a good click-through for that single event we were targeting, but there was also a lot of click-throughs on the calendar option. So people would go, oh yeah, the library, what else are they doing? And they would go to the
Yeah,
calendar. So that
yeah.
that was useful. So I think though, like for example, if you had an event that did not have registration, I always think of like a youth event where maybe parents are like, I've got a busy, whatever. You're not going to
Mm-hmm.
remember 4 weeks in advance, but maybe two
2 weeks
weeks in
out.
advance. This is
Mm-hmm.
just my personal, like you,
Yeah.
again, like you said, you have to play around with it
You
somewhat too.
do. You have to try. Yeah, so if you're just what if the question is mostly just like what do we include in a weekly email, I would personally if I would send it out on I would send it out on the weekend, maybe on Friday night or Saturday for the coming week. Or like Sunday might be, but I would, here's what's this week, maybe one featured event, and then at the bottom maybe like I was saying, maybe include a little save the date section at the bottom
Mhm.
for the next 2 to 3 weeks. If there's anything big, like you were saying, needs registration or something, give them a little lead time for that. It's not going to be a huge section in that email, but a one-liner, upcoming events you might want to put on your radar, put on your calendar. These things need to be registered for. One line, click here to go read more, to go do your registration, whatever. Still keeping it short, but still giving them a little bit more lead time. That's how
Yeah,
I would
I
handle it.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I just have one more quick question. Somebody asked if people are creating these newsletters in Canva. Um, I think if I had to guess, you can
Some
tell
I
me.
think probably, I think Canva is very widely used.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. I don't use Canva a lot myself, but I don't know if Canva lets you build a whole email if it works as an email client, like you can send stuff from Canva. Not that I'm aware
Yeah.
of. But as far as making images and sizing
Mhm.
images and making little icons and stuff, Canva can do all of that. I know people use
Right.
it a lot for that. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
that's what I would say is whenever I've done it, I've used it for those images that
All the
catch people's
pieces,
eye
right?
and
Yeah.
then put that into the email client or the email newsletter client that I'm
From there.
using.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because usually they don't, I don't know. I'm used to Library Aware, so the editing
Mhm.
features in there are not. stellar, but
Yeah,
um,
most email
you
clients
know,
are not going to be able to edit images a whole lot.
mhm,
Some do a little bit, but it is usually better to do it off that part, save them all out, upload them to your email client.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. All
Hmm.
right, well, that is the end of the questions.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much. I
Hope that's
will
been
be,
helpful.
yes, I'm gonna stop the recording now.
All right.